Hey, I'm Nathan Brandt. You're watching Coal Iron Works American Made series. Today, we are in Warwood, West Virginia at Warwood Tool, a plant that's been manufacturing hand tools since 1854. So we're going to take a look inside and see what we find.
One thing I'm curious about, we kind of dove in and talked about where you guys are right now.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. What about before that? Obviously, Warwood as a company has been around since 1854. Mm-hmm. None of us have been around since.
Right. Right.
So where do you and your family come into play with Warwood and kind of the events leading up to your guys' involvement with that?
Yeah. Okay. Well, I'll backtrack to start. Sure. So I will try my best to keep it concise as I can. I like the story, so I can be a little long-winded about the wonderful story because I think it's awesome. Yeah. But basically, in 1854, Warwood Tool Company is started by a guy named Henry Warwood. He was the son of a toolmaker in England, and he came over to the United States just before 1854, so let's just pretend 1850. We'll go with that. He comes over here. He's spending most of his time up in Pittsburgh, so not too far from here, and he worked making tools and in a steel mill. Okay. So he was kind of always in steel and had a background in tool making. Yeah. He decided to start his own tool company. I'm pretty sure he was like 24. Okay. So he's basically my age. Yeah. And he starts Warwood Tool Company making mostly gardening tools and some mining picks. Okay. So that's kind of how it all started. And he became famous for his mining pick. If you had a pick, if you were going mining, you wanted a Warwood pick. Mm. So he did coal picks and the gold pick. It's got its own story I won't get into. But it's a cool story. Literally 1854, we just had the California Gold Rush. Right. We had just built the Transcontinental Railroad going across the country. And so sure enough, that kind of expands out into making more railroad tools. It only went east to west coast. They still had a lot of network to do. Sure. So it started to branch into other tools that were mining, that were construction tools for different infrastructure, all kinds of things. Yeah. And of course, railroad tools. And then that really became the bread and butter of the company. Probably around the time that they built this building, probably around 1905 or so, is when it mostly did railroad tools. And so then we had World War I, World War II. Company made, I'll get it later, we can show it on video, it's pretty cool. I have one of the trench mattocks, and so Warwood, I actually have it right there on that shelf. I'll show it to you. It's from the quartermaster of war or something. It's some crazy thing that just blows your mind. And they submitted it from the government to Warwood. It's the original hand-drawn blueprint of the trench mattock. And so Warwood made trench mattocks for the war to dig the trenches. Sure. So then there's a couple different stories relating to that, which I won't talk about because it's long-winded and it's just not worth it. But it's cool. The point is there's a ton of history with almost every war, literally every war since the Civil War. Warwood has made tools that in some way have helped. We actually have a couple different letters of like soldiers in Korea, and they're writing back to home saying, "You'll never believe it, Mom. It's like I'm here in Korea and I just used a Warwood tool and it reminded me of being at home," because he lived in Wheeling. Yeah. Wow. So there's just all kinds of crazy stories that come all as a part of the history of the company. But eventually, companies just got a lot of different tools, and it kind of starts to wind down, and they start trying to narrow their focus, and it narrowed a little too much. And so they started to switch gears, and Warwood did Warwood Tactical for a little while. And we just saw this need where all the tools aren't made in the USA anymore. They're all being imported, and these tools are simply, they're just bad. We've had so many people talk about, you get a pry bar and it's coming from China, you buy it at Home Depot, you're trying to move something and your pry bar bends. Right. I'm like, well, that's just because it's bad steel. And maybe it's because it's not heat treated. There's something wrong, obviously. Right. But most people aren't doing anything to fix it. So there was pretty clear opportunities for us to bring certain different product lines back.
Yeah.
And that's the beauty of it is we've got all these forged dies. They're not gone.
Right.
We've got all these forged dies for stuff out there that you saw.
Yeah.
So, I mean, if there's enough of a need, we can bring a lot of these tools back and try to, make them again here in the USA.
That's awesome.
But
There's something powerful about the fact that it's a hand tool.
right.
You're not talking about an industrial machine. There's a huge importance for that because it begets the product that the American citizen has. But there's something that made in America that an average American can own and use with their own two hands. I think that there's a special connection.
Well, I think it trickles back upwards, right? Because in this sense, you guys are building what the end result, and then now you're looking around saying, well, how am I going to build these faster and better, right? You're beginning to push the buttons that, as the production slowed down, people stopped asking. And so now we're getting questions like, can we build bigger presses? Can we build hammers? Can we see it? We have to start with that simple solution, and it begins to ask questions again that haven't been asked in a long time.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I think walking around here, it's really a testament to the generations of people that have taken the work upon their shoulders to continue. But now it's an opportunity to look backwards and say, oh, we need to take a step back and begin again, and let's set a new trail. So he posed a great question. I mean, where did you and your family come into the Warwood story?
Yeah. So Warwood was it was in like a downspout.
Right.
And I'm sure you'll see with the history, really any company that's old, there's ups and there's downs.
Of course.
And so it was a down. And it was an unfortunate time. It was right before the COVID thing happened, right? So it was not a good time to be looking to invest in a business and buy it and keep your staff working. But it's just how it was. It was May of 2020 when we took over the company.
Yeah.
And technically in May, we didn't know what was going to happen. We were hoping nothing bad would happen. But we got here in May of 2020, and like I kind of said, there was nothing. Everything was just ancient. It was dirty, and we did a lot of work to kind of renovate the office, to paint things, to begin setting the plans of what products to bring back, what equipment line should we focus on rebuilding first. And then, of course, the constant, ever-going process of cleaning. Just dirt. There's coal dust from probably the 50s on some of the stuff out there.
Of course.
So it's been a long process, but we've come a long way.
So we've seen a lot of really cool stuff. We've seen some behind the scenes of what you have in the works. What you're willing to share? What can we be on the lookout for maybe throughout the rest of this year of exciting new stuff coming from Warwood?
Yeah, well, definitely one of the first things I'm trying to get out is a blacksmithing tool line. I have seen just tremendous amount of growth in the market of blacksmiths, whether they're hobby blacksmiths or full-time blacksmiths.
Right.
But that's what we've seen is a lot of our growth on social media. A lot of the people who are reaching out, phone calls, emails, they're reaching out and they're like, hey, I'm a blacksmith and I need these tools.
Right.
So a lot of the tools are things we already make.
Sure.
And what we're going to do is we're going to kind of just change them up a little bit.
Right.
There's no reason that a blacksmith should be getting a blue painted tool because the minute that touches hot steel, the paint starts to burn. It looks awful.
Yeah.
So we're trying to come up with just some creative ways to make them look cool, to keep preserve that really cool drop forged look of the tool with some scale on there. And really just create a cool line that suits everything. So we're going to try to get probably a dozen or so products in that line. But we'll start small with the ball peens. That's the big thing is get these the 32-ounce ball peen together, and then we'll add the 48, and then we'll see. So probably one or two smaller ones. We'll see. But that's the big plan is get this blacksmith line going.
Awesome. Super exciting.
Yeah, especially for us.
Right.
We are kind of directly in that market. So. Very cool. Well, Chris, this has just been an absolute pleasure, and thank you for being so generous with your time, letting us get a beautiful behind-the-scenes look of what you guys are doing here and some of the super top secret things coming next. We're all very excited for it.
Right.
So really appreciate it.
Yeah, no, it's great to have you guys, and super hopeful that we can bring some awareness to Warwood Tool in the process.
Absolutely.
And, bring USA manufacturing back, right?
Yep.
That's the goal.
That's the goal. Absolutely.